I'm Roberta Del Rio here for Gozamos with Horacio Neto, one of the designers in La Catrina fashion show. How did you come up with all this wonderful, absolutely wonderful collection?
It started in my head a couple of years ago. I used to dance folklorico, or Mexican folk dancing, for about 10 years. And I always wanted to do a collection inspired by the costumes of Mexico. I finally had the time where I wanted to present it. I kind of have the motto of things happen for a reason. So one day I emailed Jorge to see if I could have the show here. And he emailed me back saying, oh my God, I wanted to talk to you because we want to do this show at the museum. So I said, you know what, it works out perfectly because I have this very Mexican inspired collection. So that's how it just came out, and then out of nowhere it just grows organically with silhouettes, colors. I wanted it to be very Mexican, so I had my family send me those Mexican shopping bags. Right. We went and bought flowers, so it was like Day of the Dead, and we put them on there. Just putting the messenger strap on one of those bags just to make it more ready to wear, more wearable.
Right. So I noticed all those bags, and I was just amazed at them. I mean, like, I know, like, my grandma always had those bags before, and I never gave her too much credit for it, but what you did with them was just inspired. Do you think that the accessories, did you design the accessories before?
No, I always design the accessories after I design the collection.
Okay.
I think the accessories are that detail that makes it, pops it a little bit more, because if I would have just sent one of the dresses without those accessories, it would have just been like, oh, a cute dress. But because she had that bag, and then we had the headbands with flowers, since the beginning I knew I wanted flowers in the hair. Yeah. I really wanted to do real flowers, but then I knew that was going to become an issue because I would have had to make them today in order for them to look fresh, and then I just didn't want to deal with that. So the best thing was look for ones that actually looked really nice. So I went to a store, bought them out of flowers, cut them up, and we just started gluing them to these headbands and then just making them look like a Frida Kahlo detail.
Yeah, and I also, you know, you talk about your dance background, and I definitely saw a lot of flowing and movement in them. Do you think that you subscribe to the sort of mermaid skirt? I saw that a lot.
I think it's a silhouette I use a lot. I always do collections very feminine. Obviously with the Mexican folk skirts, they're very big. I didn't want to do a skirt that was extremely big because it's not something a woman would wear like to the office, or she would wear to a party, unless there was like specifically like, oh, I picked this Mexican skirt for this event. So it was just kind of adding those little flares here and there for it to like work and for it to look a little bit more feminine, but yet I still wanted the pieces to be, I can wear this to work and then I can wear it to a baby shower, or I can wear it to a party, and it's still something fashionable the customer and the client obviously knows that it's from the collection of Frida. Right. But that if somebody else saw it, they'd just be like, oh my God, that's a really cute dress, where'd you get it?
And I noticed the male aspect of it. Is that something that you design often?
Yeah, I have a menswear line. Unfortunately, right now, due to budget and the economy, I had to put it on hold. It becomes double the expense making the female collection and then making the same amount of menswear pieces, where I'm one of the few designers in Chicago that actually has a female line and a menswear line. It wasn't by choice. It kind of just, the menswear grew organically because I started getting more of a request for it. George had spoken to me for the museum and said, I want menswear pieces, and I had told him, well, I don't have any new pieces, and it was actually Elda, the other designer at the meeting, that said, Horacio, use your old pieces, mix them in there. I know you already have some colors that are going to go. And sure enough, I was mad at her at first for opening her mouth, I'm not going to lie, but then we started going through them, and I'm like, okay, here's a blue, here's this yellow, this is the same fabric as one of the other coats, because I tend to kind of use some of the fabrics and mix them between the men's and women's, and then it was just
which is an aspect that I absolutely adored.
And so it actually turned out great, where everybody was like, it just seemed like, for people that know me, they might know those pieces. For someone new, will probably think that I made those pieces for the collection. Yes. And that's what I loved about it, that it like blended in, and then I added the bags with them as well, and just made them kind of be a masculine Mexican guy in the sense.
Yeah, and speaking of the colors, I was talking to you backstage, and you said that certain colors went with certain states. Yeah. And you chose 4 states, am I correct?
I chose 5 states.
5 states.
5
Guerrero,
Oaxaca, Zacatecas, Veracruz, and
Colima, right?
Veracruz, Colima. Thank you.
I say Guerrero first because I'm from Guerrero. So. But I noticed that they were very, singular to those regions. Could you tell us which colors went with which states?
Oh, sure. Guerrero was the yellows and oranges. The very first dress that had the drop shoulder that kind of looked like a sack dress. I specifically picked that fabric because a lot of the Guerrero dresses are made out of the manta material.
Yeah.
And they have just the embroidery. So I wanted that dress to be something from Guerrero. Colima were the reds and pinks. Anything that was red, anything that was a fuchsia or pink, it was just those tones. Veracruz were all the white dresses, and we try to give it a touch of red in there. The Veracruz, they have a touches of red or red roses in there. Zacatecas was the blues and greens, so anything that you saw blue or green was Zacatecas. And then the Oaxaca were the blacks. And the last dress, which the black and gold, the last two dresses were the finale piece.
Which I have to say, the absolute last dress, the ultimate dress, was the ultimate dress of the collection. I was just like amazed. In fact, in the narration of the video, which you shall see on Monday, I was just like stunned. I was like, oh my God, you know, and it's just strong shoulders, I felt.
Yeah. I just gave it, there was another dress prior to that, a little gold one, and that one went with that collection, but that gold was a little bit more of a brighter gold, so that's why we put it in the earlier colors, and the other golds were more like a toned down kind of darker gold. But that fabric I fell in love with the minute I saw it because I knew that Oaxacan women back in the day had those gold medallion necklaces.
Yeah.
And I had asked many people from Oaxaca. I have a lot of friends that say, oh, my family's from Oaxaca, so we want to see what you're going to do with Oaxaca. And I said, well, do they have those? And they're like, yeah, back then they would have gold necklaces. So when I saw that it was black with dots of gold, where I was like, oh, it's perfect. It works with it. And then it was a fabric. I tend not to use a lot of prints, as you could see. A lot of them were a lot of solids because I'm just scared with prints sometimes. So this one was all black, but it had a touch of gold. So I said, you know what, let me try it. And I did want to do those shoulders. I wanted to give a little touch to Oaxaca that was different, but that kind of still looked Mexican once it was like on the runway and with this collection. But when it was by itself, that dress might look futuristic to somebody else. That dress might look vintage or traditional somewhere. It depends how they style it. But yeah, that piece was one of our best pieces, and especially the fabric.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Horacio.
No problem. Thank
Congratulations
you so much.
on a completely amazing, innovative
collection.
collection.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
We'll see you later. Hey, it's Roberto again for Gozamos TV, and I'm standing here with Gary Gonzalez, the designer who made a very, very big impression on me.
Thank you.
Could you tell me a little bit about, I noticed a lot of neutrals and a lot of earth tones and earthy sort of vibes in your collection. How does that factor in your
Well,
designing?
first of all, my the collection for this event was based on, it was inspired by Dia de los Muertos. And I chose my fabrics not only by color, but more so by texture and print. I have a collection of Dia de los Muertos the Catrina dolls, and I looked at them and what they wore and kind of just modernized it. That's how I went about selecting my fabrics. I didn't really think of a color pattern first. I pretty much chose the fabrics by texture and pattern.
And am I correct in thinking that there were a little bit of a 70s inspired kind of vibe to it?
You know what? I kind of got that feeling too. It wasn't planned, but like with the jumpsuit.
Yes.
What I liked about the jumpsuit, I was afraid that it was going to look a little disco-y, but I think it worked because the inside of the fabric was actually more shiny. The side that I used is actually the wrong side of the fabric, but I liked it more because it had more of a metallic feel, like you know how Mexico in a lot of art there's a lot of like tin metals. That's what that reminded me of, and I thought this could work for the collection that I'm working on.
Right.
So I think it worked.
It did.
Like you're right, it did have a 70s feel for it, and I was afraid of that, but I think it worked out.
I think it worked completely. I am a fan of the 70s at the moment.
I love the 70s.
And speaking of which, your collection, you said, was inspired by your late brother.
Yes.
What kind of relationship did you have with your brother?
My brother was my best friend. He died when I was 31. He was 32. He was my best friend. We were a year and 15 days apart. So we were very close in age. We grew up together. We felt like twins.
Yeah.
He died in '95, and a year after his death, my family and I went to Mexico, and I bought my first Catrina doll in honor of him. And since then, every time I've been back to Mexico, I've always bought another piece. So it's turned out to an extensive collection of Day of the Dead art. And looking at all these like Catrina dolls. I have like skeleton heads, like little skeleton necklaces, and just a really nice collection. Right. Looking at it, I thought, man, I would really like to design a collection inspired by Dia de los Muertos and just honor my brother with it. And that's what I did.
And, you know, Mexican culture, especially art culture, is very infused with the idea that death isn't necessarily an ending, but it might be a beginning or an intermediary for something else. Right. How do you feel that death and life, because your collection was very lively as well, how do you feel that that juxtaposition worked in your collection?
Because with the masks, the mask brought a little bit of a solemn feeling, but they were also very beautiful. And I think that as solemn as death is, as solemn as death can be, it's not about being sad for the rest of your life. It's about celebrating that person. That's what what really gets me inside with Dia de los Muertos is how the Hispanic culture honor the dead more than they mourn them. Of course you're going to mourn them, you know, maybe for a very long time like I have with my brother, but in the end, overall, I celebrate his life, and I think I did that with this collection.
That's completely beautiful.
Thank you.
And your collection, by the way. It was almost like part Greek tragedy and a second part like Mexican surrealist art. It was definitely very theatrical. How did you figure that out?
Well, I picked out the music. I love music, and the music to me worked really well. It was very theatrical. The first song for the first 9 outfits, but then the second song, I just wanted to present almost like a wedding scene, but almost like he was honoring her, and I don't know, it was just with the veil, I think about my art background, and I think that had a lot more to do with the way it was presented, and I just felt like he was guarding her with the veil, but then he decided to like let her free and let her go, and I think that's what death is about, is just like letting go, but you know, letting them be free, letting them be where they're at now.
And actually, it's funny that you should have said about the wedding thing, because I figured, like, you know, a gray wedding dress, like, that is just completely modern, completely amazingly beautiful. And it's very cathartic, too, because, you know, weddings are kind of like deaths, you know, or birthdays, you know, big events like that in people's lives are sort of correlated. And together, do you think that you could market that as a wedding dress? Or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've known a lot of women who prefer a less traditional wedding, and I think it's more of a statement when you have something that's so non-traditional when it comes to wedding dresses. I actually did I made a wedding dress made out of like a fabric that felt like paper. I've done a wedding dress out of black silk. So yeah, it's like, I like women who think outside of the box.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much, Gary, for your time.
Thank you,
and
Roberto,
for your collection.
right?
Roberto, yes. This one could not remember my name for the life of him, but that's all right.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm here again, Roberto Del Rio for Gozamos TV, with Elda de la Rosa, the third designer, certainly not the least.
Thank you.
And the only female designer. How does that feel?
Feels very good. Yes.
Now, I have to commend you on your usage of the, I felt kind of like the pre or post World War I silhouette in some of the skirt suits. And
yes.
It was very sort of early 20th century.
Yes. I really I've always looked to the past for my inspiration. I'm not a modern designer. I'm not a trendy designer. I'm one that loves the classics, and I love for my work to look timeless.
And your wedding dresses were spectacular. My favorite wedding dress, though, was the first one that came out, the gray one. It was sort of like very stylized rosettes.
Yes.
Which,
yes.
I mean, I'm a sucker for anything non-traditional, and I think you just threw it out of the ballpark there.
Thank you.
Do you get a lot? Because I understand that you do have a lot of bridal couture.
Yes. Yes,
in your
that's where I
portfolio?
started my business, was doing weddings. And
Do you find a lot of women going for a more untraditional
my
aspect?
my clientele is a woman that's in her 30s to 40s, so they really don't want the big white wedding dress.
Right.
I do a lot of wedding dresses that are in cream, platinum, blue, red. Yeah, so I have the modern woman that is willing to do it something different.
And I also think that you being a woman, you have a certain insight into the way that women look and the way that women wear clothes. How do you think that, say, the first piece that came out, that suit, is that more for a casual after work thing, or is it for a meeting? Or
Yeah, it's pretty much, a confident woman that isn't afraid to wear white. But yes, it's about curving it to the woman's body. So I do understand that.
yeah, and I also noticed a lot of the embellishments that you had, the jewel tones that just like stuck there underneath the bodice. Could you tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
They're all vintage pins. I get inspired by, like I said, the past, and going to, if it's not a resale shop, like Lost Eras has a lot of vintage pins,
Yes.
and the flea markets. I need to go out there and explore, and whatever I find that's one of a kind is an inspiration, and I know it's going to go on a gorgeous piece of silk.
So how do you think about the progression of time when it comes to fashion? Do you subscribe to that notion that everything comes back every 20 years, or everything is, everything's been done before?
Everything does come back. Being in my 40s, I know that now. I remember growing up and learning how to sew on the 80s dresses, and it's funny how you see the trends come back. So yes, everything does come back.
And I noticed that your children were here.
Yes.
How old are your boys?
I have a son, a freshman in high school, and then I have a
my.
first grader in primary school.
Oh.
So I'm a working mom.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yes.
Where exactly are you from in Mexico?
I was born in Coahuila, Mexico, and Allende, Coahuila. And I was raised in Rockford, Illinois since the age of 2, and I moved here for design school when I was 19, and I've been here for the last 25 years.
And how do you find Chicago women to, sort of dress? Like, what do you think defines a Chicagoan woman when it comes to style?
You know what I find about Chicago women that I don't feel that you get that on the East Coast or West Coast? We actually see a lot of seasons, whereas I think in California everybody dresses for the nice weather. Here we wear our tweeds, we wear our beautiful wool coats, that we appreciate all the fabrics and all the seasons. So.
And I noticed there's a lot of green and a lot of red in your collection, and a lot of like maroons. Was that a throwback to Mexico, Mexican flag?
Absolutely. I always, in every collection, I always make a pink dress because to me the pink signifies love, and it's also rosa, like my last name.
Yeah.
And then green is the color of hope and esperanza, and so to me I always put those two colors in there because as a Mexican person, I believe in those little things in your line,
Yeah.
la bendición, that they
Yeah.
have to be there, and I know that luck will follow me.
So, what was the central theme of this collection?
Just celebrating my culture, just
Okay.
celebrating the beautiful Mexican women. I grew up with my grandmother sewing, my aunts all sewed. We were, I remember being a little girl and wanting beautiful dresses for the weddings and quinceañeras, and that's really where this passion came from. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It was
Thank
a pleasure
you.
talking to
My
you.
pleasure too. Thank you.
It was an amazing collection, by the
I
way.
appreciate
I was
that.
just completely impressed.
Really, thank you so much.
Oh, of course. And 40s. You don't look a day over 14. Quinceañera over here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You come over anytime and I'll make you anything.
All right.
I didn't
You
say that
heard
on
it here-
TV.
You heard it here first, y'all. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye-bye.